All right, Cindy, you do the intro today.
Hi, this is Cindy, and welcome to the Free Bin, the podcast of the Toledo Public Library. I'm here today with
Harrison.
And we are discussing an interesting kind of topic that maybe people don't know a whole lot about, or maybe they think they do, but they really don't.
Yes. Well done. I just sprung that on Cindy.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I usually do the intro. And then I messed up the sliders because I was so used to talking at the same time. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Oh, well, that's okay. But before we get started, we have two things to do. We have our announcements, and then we have our beverage, which apparently I bought one that Harrison already knows. So
it's been a while, though. I remember I like it, but I don't remember what it tastes like.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. So the big news is probably that summer reading program has started. Sign up, start this week. Come in, sign up. 10 books read. Gets you a cool T-shirt or a cool tote bag. All ages can sign up, and you can have someone read to you, or you can read your own, or you can be audiobooks. You can do whatever you want to read books. We just want people to read books.
Yes. And if you're reading books to a small child, that counts too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Both of you.
Yeah. So the other big news, on summer reading program, I wanted to announce that our first performer it's on Thursday, June 26th. It is Jordan Vickers of Oregon Reptile Views.
Yeah. Come
and see the snakes. I will be upstairs in my office because I don't do snakes, but I like lizards. So maybe, I'll conquer my fear. I doubt it. But
I'll just bring a snake into
no,
the
you
office.
Won't. No. We would not be friends no more. They freak me out just a little bit. They make my stomach hurt. Anyway, so those things are coming June 26th, Thursday, 10:30 a.m. In the meeting room. Apparently, we don't take the reptiles outside.
You don't put a leash on the snake.
That's
and just
right.
Let it run around.
That's right. And
hard to fit a harness on one of those guys.
Right. Reminder too that we are closed on June 19th. June 19th for Juneteenth. And then July 3rd, there is no programming. We are closed July 4th. So those are just upcoming things. We'll remind you. There'll be signs on the door, all that kind of stuff. We have a couple cool things now in the library that are new. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. We have a big event coming up soon. Next week, our grand opening of Talibius and the library mural in the teen corner. We have finished that project. It looks very cool. Up from now until then, you can come in and try your hand at Ms. Pac-Man and Pac-Man. I almost said Mr. Pac-Man.
Well, he is Mr. Pac-Man.
You can do that tournament right now. What's the high score at?
We are on the original Pac-Man. We are north of 20,000 now.
Okay.
So we've got a couple folks who have pushed that score up and raised the bar. We've still got a pretty blue sky on Miss Pac-Man. We do have one person who has been pushing that score up. Miss Pac-Man is a little bit harder than Pac-Man on a technical level. There's more random number generation, some more dynamic fruit movement, but yes.
Fruit movement. Nice.
Yeah, bonus fruit. So, you can come in and put your hand in, try as many times as you like, and we'll see how far we can push those scores. First 3 places on each game will receive their certificate, and the plan is that each winner on either of those games for the high score will receive a bottle of Ricky's world famous hot sauce from Ricky's restaurants in Hollywood, Florida, and Ricky's Hot Sauce and Ricky's Restaurants, I believe it's a 2-restaurant chain, is owned by Billy Mitchell, the man who has the high score, the perfect score in Pac-Man from 1983, I believe is when. No. It was determined, I think, in 1983 what the perfect score was.
Oh.
He didn't get it until 1999.
Yeah, so you can see what we did there. There's a connection. So you might go, hot sauce. There's a connection.
Yeah.
So come in and try your hand at that. There's lots of other games on there that you can play with. It's a really cool thing. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today in our subject because it pertains. But also our big, beautiful book giveaway is happening June 28th. It is all the books we've weeded from the library, and we are working hard to weed our fiction. There is young adult. There's lots of nonfiction. So come and see and take, and we don't want them back. They're stamped withdrawn for a reason. Mm-hmm. And if you bring them back, we'll stamp withdrawn on your head. So don't bring them back. But that's a fun time. You might want to we'll have some boxes and bags available, but you might want to bring your own box, your own bag. It'll run all day. So from 10 to 4, we have our volunteers. They're our great volunteers, and advisory board will be staffing that. And so that is very, very cool.
Yeah. Looking forward to clearing up some space. We've got new stuff coming in.
Yeah, we got a lot of new stuff coming in, and I have a whole cart full of graphic novels for our adult section that needs to be put out. So we got to clear some space. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. You ready for the beverage?
I'm ready for the beverage.
Today's beverage is brought to you by Genuine Faygo. Delicious firework, naturally and artificially flavored. Now, it's called firework. How is that naturally flavored? Sulfur?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, you're talking, sulfur and gunpowder. It's a pretty close to the earth thing. You're right. Yeah.
It's not. I hate to disappoint all of you, but it is not flavored with gunpowder. Oh my gosh, the total sugars.
How much? Oh, should I guess?
Guess.
The last Faygo was like 72.
Yeah.
It's 72?
No.
It's not 72? It's higher or lower?
Higher.
83.
Oh, you're so close. It's 82.
Oh, firework.
Oh, my gosh.
That's a Doom shotgun, but that's the only explosion noise I have.
It is nice. It's colored like, I don't know, kind of white. It reminds me of the citrus sodas that you can get, which,
It's kind of squirt colored.
Yeah. I didn't know if we could say it.
Cloudy.
Can we say the brand?
We can say the brand.
Sorry, I get confused. All right,
there
ready?
We go.
Oh, it smells kind of bubblegummy.
Yeah, it's emulating a rocket pop, right? Is the idea from the picture?
Oh, yeah, maybe. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's definitely got 82 grams of sugar in it. Mm-hmm. Holy cow. Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot.
It is.
It is
340 calories.
So you don't even need to eat.
No.
You just drink your Faygo.
That's right. And your teeth will rot out and you'll have diabetes that's crazy. So parents, let that be a warning to you. Don't give your children Faygo.
Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be juggalos.
Oh, brother.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop. Anyway, yes, there is a picture of those little striped popsicles that were red, white, and blue. So Rocket Pops or whatever. Yeah, I can see the taste is like a melted popsicle with carbonation. So there you go. All right.
Ooh, that red, white, and blue.
Whew.
All right. Are we ready?
Well, I think so.
What do you got for us, Cindy?
We are talking because we've had some. So backstory. I get the privilege of working with a theater group in town, and they are doing 12th Night. And as if you might not know, but 12th Night was written by Shakespeare, and the director said to me at auditions one day when we were doing auditions, he said, "Oh yeah, well, we don't have to pay for copyrights, and usually you have to pay something to produce a play." And he's like, "'Cause it's public domain." And I went, Yeah. And I had forgotten that things that we take for granted, like those classic literature and that kind of stuff, is public domain. Shakespeare's public domain. So if you wanted to put together a theater group and go do Much Ado About Nothing, you could do it and not pay for the copyright to do that. And I thought that was really interesting. And then when I started thinking about the different things that are in public domain, I think there's a lot in public domain that people don't know.
Most things are in the public domain from throughout human history.
So I asked Harrison to explain how public domain kind of works. I didn't realize that there was every year more things get released into public domain. There was kind of a little fuss about Mickey Mouse in his iteration.
I think it's iteration.
Something like that. Of Steamboat Willie is now public domain, but you can't use Mickey Mouse from 2000 in anything. Disney will come after you. But you could put a picture of Steamboat Willie on a T-shirt and sell them. Right? Mm-hmm. So, because he's public domain. So, there's a lot to it, but I wanted to talk a little bit about that and then tie it into our new gaming system, Talibius, because those are different, but kind of the same.
Yeah. Copyright. We've done public domain episodes in the past, but it's good to check in on what libraries can do, what libraries are for, and the public domain, fair use, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. There's a lot more to go into.
Right. But let's start with what is in public domain. And I told Harrison, I don't know, did you pick something to read from public domain?
I did not. I thought I'd let you go for it because I do a lot of pulling public domain works for our kind of story time episodes. So I thought I'd maybe yield the floor.
Oh, okay. Well, I just brought something simple, and because my brain is in Shakespeare, because that's what we're working on for this theater company. I chose one of my favorite sonnets by Shakespeare. But as I was looking through, and I was at the website Project Gutenberg, which has so many things on it that are free. You can print them, you can read them online, you can download them to an ebook. A lot of them have audio files, so you could listen to them. It's just pretty cool. But some of the people I found on public domain are Mark Twain is on public domain, Jane Austen, Shakespeare. There's plays, there's poetry, there's all kinds of stuff. Harrison's going to talk a little bit more about the movies in public domain because I don't know a lot about that. But it's really interesting. So I brought this sonnet. I'm not well rehearsed on it, but it is one of my favorites. And I like it because if you get a chance, I would Google, if you're interested in how Shakespeare should be done, I would go to YouTube and search and see if you can find anything with Dame Judi Dench reading Shakespeare, or Sir Patrick Stewart, or Benedict Cumberbatch. And if you know those names, you know what I'm talking about. They're famous actors who have performed a lot of Shakespeare with the Royal Shakespeare Company. And they have such a handle on that language. It is so beautiful when they do it. So I'm probably not going to do it really great. But I heard, I listened to Judi Dench read this sonnet, and I just thought it was so lovely. So I'm going to do that. Okay? We're going to try. Are you ready? It is 29, number 29. When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy, contented least. Yet in these thoughts myself almost despising, haply I think on thee, and then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising, from sullen earth sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings.
Well done.
Thank you.
And I just had a last horse crossing the finish line moment.
Uh-oh.
Because the phrase deaf heaven, there's a band called
Deaf Heaven.
And they're like I'm not a big fan of I haven't listened to their stuff, but I've heard of them. They're like a black metal, post black metal kind of band, and it just clicked for me. I'm like, oh, that's probably a pretty obvious Shakespeare reference, but I did not know where they
got it from.
Anyway, there I got there.
Well
done.
I really like that sonnet. I think it's so kind of apt for, I mean, Shakespeare is timeless. And like you said, there are so many references, words that we have in our vocabularies and in our lexicon that are Shakespeare made up, you know. But this one, because it's so, you know, when we all like want for something more, or we look around and we're like, well, they have this and he's smarter than me, or he has more possessions or more friends. The reader, the writer of this says, no, then I think about you, this person that I love, and realize that I have contentment and I have more wealth than kings. I don't want to change what I have to be what they have. And I think that that's just really kind of apt for our society today, that we should look at what we have and be thankful. Mm-hmm. Anyway. So that is my contribution. Now the question. Talk about public domain to us who don't know.
Yeah, so public domain refers to works that are not the intellectual property of anybody in particular. It's going to vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. What is public domain in the United States may not be public domain in the United Kingdom or Japan or what have you. It depends on where you are.
Okay.
In the United States, there's Public Domain Day. Is January 1st, you know, when we celebrate all the new things that are falling into the public domain. So the most recent, we've got 1929 as the cutoff date for published works. So things published in 1929 or before. Everything there is public domain.
Okay.
Sound recordings, 1924 is the cutoff date.
Okay.
So prior to 1924. So that means that where it gets tricky in that in between, right? If there's a song that's from 1905, the song is in the public domain, but you have a recording that was made in 1925. That recording, that performance is not yet in the public domain.
Okay.
Even though other works published 1929 or before, books, movies, things like that, are in the public
Interesting.
domain. So basically, once you get past those things, it's all belongs to everybody.
Okay.
So a good resource for texts would be Project Gutenberg. Like you said, another kind of related project that I really like is Standard Ebooks. If you Google for the Standard Ebooks website, that's a project to kind of take these public domain works from places like Project Gutenberg and then package them as ebooks in a standard format and still provide them for free. But it's almost like approaching it like a publisher would. So rather than just have the big dump of the text of the work, package them up in a consistent, uniform way. So I'll oftentimes look at standard ebooks first to see if there's like a neatly packaged, nice to look at ebook of it. And if I don't find it there, it's usually going to be on Project Gutenberg or on the Internet Archive, archive.org. They also have a lending library of things that are not public domain. You can sign up for the Internet Archive and you can borrow ebooks. Some of them really interesting, oddball old books. But also a lot of public domain films are on archive.org. And there are other reasons things may fall into the public domain. So, you know, you won't necessarily be just finding things older than those cutoff dates, especially with movies. Sometimes rights get forgotten, neglected. They don't get transferred over. Companies go under, they get bought out or don't.
Right.
And everything just ends up being public domain that they had. So you can find some really cool stuff on the Internet Archive. Old comic books is one.
That's
I found a wiki that's called Public Domain Superheroes. It is just a catalog of just superheroes and comics characters from, a bunch of these comics publishers that went under like in the 40s or early 50s, and nobody bought their IP, intellectual property. And so you've got these weird like space adventure comics and stuff where the superheroes just, or the first appearances of some of them are just like public domain. And that's a neat thing to play with too. Because everyone loves a superhero, and hey, you can sell your fan art, right?
Right. If you find fans.
If you find fans for, there's some wacky, like these weird little detective comics. I've gone down kind of a rabbit hole. Newspaper comics too. Old, like turn of the 20th century newspaper comics are so strange. I found one last night called, I think it's called Betsy Bouncer and Her Dolly. It's actually Betsy Bouncer and Her Doll. I'll link it in the show notes. It's by a guy named Tom Tucker.
Okay.
And the first one I found has just got posted somewhere from 1905. And it's a little girl and her like life-size kind of malevolent doll that talks to her and tries to get her injured. Like a lot of the comics are like the doll telling her like, go poke that bee's nest, go mess with, go try to jump on that cow. And then something gets turned around and the doll gets hurt, sat on and hurt. And then she's carrying her doll and be like, oh, well, that'll show you, Dolly. And then it's like every strip is this weird scenario. It's really interesting. But it's a time capsule.
Yeah.
But what was I even saying? So you can find movies, comics, comic strips, comic books, and old detective comics will have these strange characters. They're all, it's like a guy in like a suit and a mask just appears in one thing, and he's like the screaming shadow or something, and then nobody ever hears it. Falls into the public domain, and it's just nobody wanted this guy to begin with.
No. Oh my goodness, that's funny.
So there's that, and so that's kind of another rundown of public domain. You don't put a shirt on Winnie the Pooh,
right. We talked about that a little bit. So you can use a character like Steamboat Willie if he was published before 1929, but you can't use a more modern, even 1930 or 40, because until that falls into public domain. And you were saying that Winnie the Pooh didn't have a shirt until Disney attached a shirt to him. And so you have to be really kind of careful. And especially because these big companies, they're territorial. And I have heard of, makers that, they created a design, they put it on a T-shirt, they sell it, and Disney's like, nope, and sues their pants off. And so
they will... Disney will have their lawyers come over and yuck you up.
That's right. So, and Disney, and we were talking also about Nintendo is very similarly. Nintendo doesn't let go of anything.
Nintendo they will come after you. Like they are known to be extremely aggressive about their intellectual property. Interestingly, I was going to say most of Nintendo's intellectual property is not in the public domain in the United States, or probably
because
anywhere,
they're not that old.
Because their video game business is not that old. But Nintendo, the company, actually far predates Disney. They started in the 19th century as a playing card manufacturer, which they still do. They have their Pokemon cards. So they still kind of do that, although that's they've got a subsidiary related company, Game Freak, that they kind of offload that because that's so big that they kind of let some related entity handle that. But yeah, that I'm sure their 19th century intellectual property, they're not really fighting for, but it is interesting to me that they are actually way older than Disney. Yeah. Even though we basically know them from like 1985 onward when that showed up. But they are territorial, and that is within their right, you know, because we all, you know, if you are a performer or you are a maker and you create something that is yours, of course you want to copyright it. Of course you don't want people stealing your property. And, you know, we see a lot of that on the internet now. When you're shopping, you have to be really careful because there was so I don't know that there's books out there. I don't think we have them here, but I have them at home. There was a influencer, for lack of a better word. I think she'd probably hate that, but she did a big site called Ebooks, and it's for nerds and geeks, you know. And then she also had something called Cake Rex, and maybe you're more familiar with Cake Rex. Yes, I am. So she had created this way to store your flip-flops because she lives in Florida, which I'm assuming you all just wear flip-flops down there all year round. I have not owned flip-flops for 20 some years, but I spent most of my childhood in flip-flops. And so she created this. If anything at all. Right. Right. For creating this, she created something, and she posted it on a makerspace page, and she was freely allowing people to copy what she had made, but it was her invention, her thing. And then people started stealing that and selling it. So even though she was giving the idea away, it's still her idea, and to make profit off of somebody else's idea is not correct. That's why we have copyright laws. So that's an interesting thing too, that we, you know, can kind of talk about that intellectual property. Well, even an idea like that for a creation or a drawing, or we talked a little bit about fan fiction. There's a line because you're using someone else's characters to create fan fiction. But I was thinking there's a lot so Jane Austen is public domain. That's why we have, like you pointed out, Pride and Prejudice and zombies, because Pride and Prejudice is public domain. There's also a lot of other books that use the characters from Jane Austen and have created a whole series of books. There's mysteries about Jane Austen solving mysteries. There's continuation stories that people have just imagined because obviously Jane Austen is no longer with us. So she's not? No. When did she die? A long time ago. I'm sorry. I didn't get the news. No, there was only newspapers back then, so it was a while. So it's interesting because the characters themselves even are in public domain. And so I find that's kind of interesting to me too, that I could take a favorite character from a book in public domain and create a whole new series of books about that character. And nobody could stop me. So that's kind of, those are some of the questions that I had because I'm still learning about all of this. But we also wanted to segue into Libius, which is our video game cabinet, which has all those games on it, and talk a little bit about the kind of usage that we as a library have privilege to use. The digital world provides many, many benefits, but what is a benefit or a threat kind of depends on who you are and how you see the world or a particular activity. You know, computers were built, you know, originally by different kinds of weirdos. And I say that with love. Like, you've got to be right. But, you know, you look at the early pioneers of digital stuff. You had a lot of these systems that were built by sometimes these kind of like hippie anarchist weirdos who just want to share everything. Right. And then you've got other like, you know, Ferengi profit-driven weirdos who want to sell everything, and sometimes together, sometimes in the same project, right? And again, I'm speaking as a weirdo here. We love weirdos, but that informs how you build a system, right? You can never say, oh, well, it's the technology, it's nobody's, whatever. It's like we build the things we need according to what we're doing.
Right.
So a lot of these technologies are built to produce infinite copies and distribute them of works, to share information, to make it not ownable, really. But also at the same time that's happening, you have other technologies developing that control access.
Right.
Put up paywalls, digital rights management, copy protections. And so just like anywhere else in the world, there's tension there.
Right.
And so what has become sort of an inherent part of software, which is you drag something from one place to another, it makes a copy. If you drag things off a thumb drive. And if you are a business entity, that can be something that you want to control or prevent. You get these things where the law regarding software, because it's more shareable in those ways, is sometimes interpreted more strictly than on a book, right? Like when we get books and movies, there's sort of that's an established kind of symbiotic relationship libraries have with book publishers, with DVD film producers, things like that, where we're not at odds with them. We're getting things early like bookstores do. One informs the other, people purchase things that they find at the library. This is sort of a known and accepted thing. That understanding in regards to libraries in the software industry is still evolving. A lot of what libraries are allowed to do in the United States in terms of providing software, preserving software, comes from Section 108 of the U.S. Copyright Act and from exemptions in the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which dates back to 98, and it's been updated, revised. It allows you to make a certain number of copies of a piece of software for preservation purposes. It acknowledges when a format may be obsolete, which means you have a digital copy. And it's a lot of logic gates. There are a lot of ifs, excepts, and unlesses. And the principle of fair use can apply beyond that. If you see a game here, you learn about it, we definitely want you to take that knowledge and interest to the arcades, seek out re-releases of older games, learn how those machines work, keep that culture alive, in its natural habitat, like a zoo, you have a, we have
Pac-Man in a cave.
Pac-Man in a cave. We have a Pac-Man, right? But we want to support the wild population of Pac-Man so that when you find a Pac-Man machine out there, you're like, I know what to do with this. And you put your quarter in, right? This is part of a broader initiative.
It is. And, libraries are the record keepers of the world. We are currently sitting in our AV room where we do the podcast, but behind me is a whole filing cabinet full of records. And I think that's kind of the cool part of Talibius is that it's a record of things that kids like kids today do not have any concept of what arcade games were like back in the day when I was a young adult. And there was nothing quite like going to Shakey's Pizza in Corvallis and, putting your quarter in the pinball machine and losing badly like I did, or sitting down at the table console across from somebody and playing Joust. Those kinds of memories that my age, your age, we have of that time, which was really an exciting time in the pre-digital world there was no internet. There was nothing like that. And it was all new and all different, and so cool to be at right at the edge of that, where now kids who are born in the last 20 years have no concept of that necessarily, unless they've sought that out. And so for us, for me, it's like a big history lesson. You know, you want to know where Nintendo came from? This is where it started. You know, you want to know why your PlayStation works the way it works. This is where it started. You know, it was innovative and imaginative. And that's, you know, we want kids to see that, and adults too, you know, because a lot of adults, I mean, if you're born in 2020, you know, I mean, not 2020, 2020. Oh my gosh, that was 24 years ago. You're an adult. But it's just so, I mean, to me, it's really cool that I have not taken the time to go back there. Every time I look at it and go, I should go play, but I have other things to do.
And the physical aspect too. We'll show you how the buttons are connected.
Right.
Don't mess with them under there, please.
Right. But we'll show you.
Unless without our permission. But we'll show you how they're wired in.
Right.
Learn how to change a button.
I think that's important too. You've talked about that. You know, you haven't played every game in that cabinet.
No.
And so if somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to play Defender, you can say, okay, we've got it there. Check it out and tell me what the buttons are like, because if they're wrong, I want to fix them for you. We
can do that in the software.
Right. And so we need other people's knowledge, people who actually played those games at some point.
Yeah.
You know, because we're adding to our collective knowledge about this, and that's kind of cool.
And yeah, ultimately we want to make sure that people know, I mean, there are thriving arcades still out there.
Oh yeah.
But like you said, if I can go off on my kids these days, there's a place in Hillsboro called Next Level. Massive arcade. It's the place for pinball especially, but they've got every arcade game that I remember.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's on free play. You pay at the door, you pay a one-time, you get your bracelet, and everything in there is on free play, except the merchandisers, the claw machines, right? Obviously. But if you go on a busy day, there can be a line on some things. And we notice that sometimes the folks in their 20s and younger don't quite adhere to the idea that when you run out your credit, the person waiting gets to take over.
Right.
So there's some etiquette things that are, you know, from the coin op days are just hardwired into me. Like if someone's behind you, if I would have to put a quarter in the machine to keep going, I go to the back of the line. So it's cultural knowledge too.
Yeah.
And as well as, you know, getting that familiarity so that when you find an arcade cabinet out there at the pizza place, at the bar, at that, you know what to do.
Right.
Like I have played Joust more on my computer at the I just dropped my phone. Internet Archive, I meant to mention this. They have something called the Internet Arcade.
Oh, okay.
So you can go to archive.org, click on their software collection, and they have the ROMs there that you can play in browser. They have a WebAssembly version of MAME running. So you click the game, and so you can play some of those games in browser without having to install or download, without having to distribute a copy of that ROM, right? You can play it in your browser. And since then, you know, I started doing that years ago, more so than playing Joust in the arcades, and got good enough at Joust that now it's like, you know, even though it's different in an emulator slightly, if I see a real Joust cabinet, I'm going to put quarters into it. I'm probably going to put $1.50 in there. Whereas if I hadn't gotten that other familiarity from an archive, from a digital library, I might just walk by it and not know what this game is. So that's another aspect of what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, to me, this has been a really interesting discussion, and I hope you guys found it interesting also. If you have any questions about the arcade or our cabinet, or you just want to come in and play around on it, please do, because we are here Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 5, and we welcome it. And, you know, we have... if somebody's playing and you want to be in line, you can just, you know, we don't have quarters to slap down on the machine, but people kind of know that they're taking turns. And I imagine it will get a lot more play as summer comes and we get kids in here.
The magic words are, I've got next.
I've got next.
That is a binding, non-negotiable contract.
I've got next.
I've got next.
That's right. So, yeah. So, and you know, obviously no fisticuffs. No. But it is a 2-player game.
It is. So, there are fighting games. There are, more on that later as we get into tournament season.
Yes, because we're going to do tournaments, I think, probably pretty frequently. And I have to laugh because a lot of the people coming in for Pac-Man are over a certain age.
Pac-Man turns 45 this year.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So...
Same age as Ryan Gosling.
Oh, great. Anyway, so come on by, play Talibius. If you have questions about public domain, or I hope you'll explore some of those options that Harrison, I'm sure, will put in the show notes. Mm-hmm. Go and explore and see what you can find. And I would encourage anybody to read Jane Austen. She's one of my favorites. And Shakespeare. Even though I will tell you Shakespeare's hard, people go, oh, I don't want to read Shakespeare. It's such hard, you know, the way he writes. But the more you read it, the more you understand it. And the more you see what a genius Shakespeare or whoever wrote, because there's some discussion.
Do you have do you come down on one particular side of was he a guy named William Shakespeare? Was it a pseudonym? Was it a group? Was it a theater troupe writing together?
I have no idea. I haven't done enough research to know, but you know, there are lots of opinions.
Yeah, I haven't done enough to have an opinion.
Right. Whoever wrote it, whether it was actually a man named William Shakespeare, whoever wrote those were genius. So just, you know, keep it with that.
Some kind of weirdo.
Yeah, some kind of weirdo who really had a thing for language and really was very prolific. But also, if you know any kind of history, you know, his history plays, his comedy, if you know anything like that, you start to kind of get the jokes and you start to go, oh, yeah, that's okay. So, you know, don't be afraid of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of Austen. She's hysterical. I mean, seriously, she's very funny. So don't be afraid of her either.
Be not afraid
of Austen or Shakespeare.
Austen cannot hurt you.
Not anymore. But
anymore. Nobody knows, but Jane Austen was just extremely violent.
Yeah, there's actually, I mean, there's several. In fact, I think I ordered it for the library. There's a PBS or a BBC new series that's coming out about Jane Austen about the person of Jane Austen, not her writing. So it's not something, but it's about why she chose not to marry, you know, and why she was single and a writer, and, you know, so we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Interesting. I might have to watch it.
And again, I'm telling you, best Pride and Prejudice, BBC.
Yes. Agreed.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Cindy.
Yep.
I hope I didn't run off on too much of a tangent there.
Well, hopefully people will not be afraid of this episode. Then they will go find public domain.
Yes. All right. Talk to you all next week.
Bye.
The Free Bin is a production of the Toledo Public Library, which is part of the Lincoln County Library District in beautiful Lincoln County, Oregon. Writing by Harrison Baker, Cindy Balek, and Denise Marsh. Original music and editing by Harrison Baker. That's me. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of any organizations they represent. Good night.